Every time you watch a movie, a news report, or just a video on your phone, you're looking at the world through the eyes of a forgotten genius. Every single screen you see, from a stadium jumbotron to that phone in your pocket, exists because of an idea that sparked in the mind of a farm boy. What if I told you that the teenager who invented electronic television was basically erased from history by a ruthless corporation? What if I told you he died in obscurity, heartbroken, and regretting the very thing he created? This is the story of the man the world forgot, but whose invention we can't live without. This is the story of Philo T. Farnsworth. Fact 1. The prodigy in the potato field. Our story doesn't start in some high-tech lab, but in the huge, quiet landscapes of the American West. Philo Taylor Farnsworth was born in a log cabin in Beaver, Utah, way back in 1906. His world was one without modern comforts. His family's home didn't have electricity or even indoor plumbing. But far from holding him back, this environment just seemed to fuel his imagination. He was obsessed with popular science magazines, tearing through theories and dreaming of inventors like Bell and Edison. He was a certified prodigy, a kid who was always tinkering, taking apart the family's hand-cranked generator just to see how it ticked. The family later moved to a farm in Idaho, and it was there, in the summer of 1921, that the big idea hit him. He was barely 15 years old. While plowing a potato field, his mind was chewing on a problem that had stumped the world's greatest engineers: how to send a moving picture through the air. At the time, everyone was focused on clunky mechanical systems with spinning wheels and mirrors that could never move fast enough. As Philo guided the plow, carving the dirt into neat, parallel lines, he looked back at his work. And in that moment, he saw it all. He realized you could capture an image the same way he was plowing that field, line by line. An electron beam could scan an image horizontally, just like his plow, moving so fast that our eyes would see it as a single, complete picture. It was a brilliant solution, purely electronic, with zero moving parts. He excitedly sketched out his idea on a blackboard for his high school chemistry teacher, Justin Tolman, who instantly knew the kid was a genius. That simple drawing, which his teacher saved, would one day become the key piece of evidence in a war for the soul of his invention. Fact 2. The dream in a San Francisco lab. A farm boy's dream is one thing. Actually building it is another. After his father died, a young Philo had to work to support his family, putting his big plans on hold. But the dream never went away. In 1926, with the full support of his new wife, Pem, he talked a couple of fundraisers into investing in his wild idea. The small team set up a makeshift lab on Green Street in San Francisco. That lab was a chaotic, dangerous place, filled with custom-blown vacuum tubes and crackling transformers, where the threat of high-voltage electrocution was constant. Philo and his tiny team, which included his wife and her brother Cliff, worked around the clock, often with no money and against impossible odds. He wasn't just inventing one little piece, he was inventing an entire system from scratch. He had to design and build the first ever television camera tube, which he called the Image Dissector, plus all the receivers and other parts to make it work. For months, it was just one failure after another. The pressure from their investors was intense. Then, on September 7, 1927, the moment of truth arrived. The team gathered in the dark lab. Philo made his final adjustments. In another room, the receiver was waiting. He powered it up. The very first image he sent was a simple, straight horizontal line. It was blurry and faint, but it was there. Electronic television was born. To prove it wasn't a fluke, he later sent a more convincing image to his nervous investors, a $sign. And shortly after, he hit the real milestone, the first transmission of a human image. While another man was technically the first person televised, his wife Pem, the partner who had been there through it all, soon became the first woman to have her image transmitted. At just 21 years old, the self-taught farm boy had done the impossible. Fact 3, the rise of the Goliath word of Farnsworth's breakthrough spread, and it eventually landed on the desk of the most powerful man in media, David Sarnoff. Sarnoff was the head of the Radio Corporation of America, or RCA, a visionary and utterly ruthless businessman who had built a radio empire. He saw television as the future, and he was determined that RCA, and only RCA, would control it. RCA had its own TV research program led by an engineer named Vladimir Zworykin, but they were lagging behind. When Sarnoff heard that a 21-year-old upstart had beaten him to it, he moved fast. In 1930, Sarnoff sent Zworykin to visit Farnsworth's lab. Pretending to be impressed, the RCA engineer got a full tour of the system. Farnsworth, a trusting, open guy, explained every last detail of his image dissector. Zworykin, apparently taking good notes, went back to RCA with the key insights he needed to perfect his own camera, the iconoscope. Soon after, Sarnoff made his move. He offered to buy Farnsworth's patents for $100,000, a fortune at the time. But there was a catch: Farnsworth would have to work for RCA. He'd lose control of his invention. Farnsworth, fiercely independent, said no. That refusal was the start of a war. If David Sarnoff couldn't buy Philo Farnsworth, he would bury him. Fact 4, the war for the electron. What came next was one of the ugliest legal fights in the history of technology. RCA, with its bottomless pockets, launched an all-out assault, filing a patent interference lawsuit against Farnsworth. Their claim was simple: the guy, Vladimir Zworykin, had invented electronic television first, with a patent he filed back in 1923. The fact that Zworykin's 1923 device had never actually worked was just a minor detail they chose to overlook. The legal battle dragged on for years, draining Farnsworth's money and his will to fight. The costs were astronomical, and the strategy was clear: bleed the young inventor dry until he gave up. The stress was crushing. Farnsworth started to suffer from depression and began drinking to cope. He was an inventor, not a corporate brawler, and the constant fighting took a heavy toll. The case ultimately boiled down to one thing: who had the idea first? RCA pointed to Zworykin's 1923 patent. It looked like a slam dunk. But Farnsworth had a secret weapon. His old high school chemistry teacher, Justin Tolman, came to testify. He brought with him a dusty notebook holding the sketch Farnsworth had drawn on his blackboard all those years ago. The diagram, dated 1922, proved that a 15-year-old Farnsworth had dreamed up a complete, working electronic television system a full year before Zworykin's patent. The evidence was undeniable. In 1934, the U.S. Patent Office made its decision, awarding priority of invention to Philo T. Farnsworth. The farm boy had taken on the giant and, against all odds, won. So Farnsworth won. He had the patent, the proof, the victory. But as we're about to see, winning the battle doesn't always mean you win the war. Before we get to the tragic end of this story, if you're finding this forgotten piece of history as fascinating as I do, hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss the other hidden stories we dig up. Fact 5, a bittersweet victory and a fading light. The court's decision should have been the end of it. But the years of legal battles had exhausted him. Finally, in 1939, RCA was forced to do something it had never done: sign a licensing agreement and pay royalties to an independent inventor. The deal was for about $1 million. It was a victory, but it came too late. The outbreak of World War II stopped all commercial television production, which ran out the clock on his most important patents before they could make him truly rich. By the time the war was over and TVs started popping up in American homes, RCA was ready. At the 1939 New York World's Fair, David Sarnoff stood on a stage and unveiled television to the world as an RCA achievement. With its massive marketing machine, RCA rewrote history, cementing Sarnoff, the businessman, as the father of television and erasing Farnsworth, the inventor, from the picture. The public, who knew nothing of the war fought behind the scenes, bought the story they were sold. Farnsworth became a footnote in his own story. Fact 6. The inventor's regret. While the world fell in love with his invention, Farnsworth grew to hate it. He moved on, pouring his genius into other fields. He held over 300 patents for everything from an early baby incubator to night vision devices. Most incredibly, he spent his later years working on nuclear fusion, inventing a device known as the Farnsworth fuser. Patented in 1968, it was designed to create clean, limitless energy and still inspires fusion researchers today. But television, his first love, became a source of deep disappointment. He'd hoped it would be a tool for education and enlightenment, but he watched it become what he felt was a vast wasteland of mindless junk. During a 1957 appearance on the game show, I've Got a Secret, a panelist asked Dr. X if he'd invented a machine that was painful. Farnsworth, who was then revealed, answered with a wry smile, "Yes, sometimes it's most painful." He famously told his own kids, "There's nothing on it worthwhile, and we're not going to watch it in this household." The years of struggle, depression, and alcoholism had taken their toll. Philo T. Farnsworth died on March 11, 1971, in Salt Lake City, Utah, in relative obscurity and debt. The story of Philo Farnsworth is a classic American tragedy. It's a story of pure, raw genius being steamrolled by corporate greed. He was an inventor who changed the world but was denied his place in it. He didn't get the fame. He didn't get the fortune. But you can't erase a legacy this big. It's in every live news report that flashes across the globe, in every movie we stream, and in every video call that connects us. His idea, those parallel lines of electrons scanning an image, is still the fundamental principle behind how every screen you look at works. His genius gave sight to the world, even if the world never really learned to see him. So the next time you turn on your TV or scroll through your phone, remember the farm boy from Utah. Remember the lines in the potato field. Remember Philo T. Farnsworth. Who's another forgotten inventor we should cover? Let us know in the comments below, and thanks for watching.